Hi, thank you for tuning in. It's your boy Luke. I have something to discuss with everybody today concerning what happened to me earlier this year. And I've been put off for a very long time and I haven't told a lot of people about it. So here's me coming clean and basically explaining what went on. So in late January, early February, I felt severely ill. I'd never felt so ill in my life, and I was suffering from these severe delusions that basically shaped the reality that I was living in. And there were two reasons for this. One, I stopped taking my medication. I was on this medication for 2 years, and I was convinced for those 2 years that they were a sleeping aid, like my doctors told me they were. But then my friend did some research about it and told me that they were actually antipsychotics, and I was just shocked. So I just stopped taking them abruptly, and that caused me to have really bad withdrawal symptoms. And two, I was taking this dissociative hallucinogenic on a weekly basis, and that really altered my psyche. And those two, as well as the large amount of stress that I was under, caused me to basically have a meltdown. And I was taken to hospital, and an altercation or an incident occurred there, and they basically placed me in a room with guards on the outside to prevent me from leaving. And at the time, I was convinced that the guards were there to protect me. I thought the guards were there to protect me, to try and prevent people from coming in and getting me. This is my state of mind at the time, but I'll explain more about that in another video. And so I had to wait in that room for about 5 or 6 hours, and the entire time I was hallucinating. And I can remember that night. It was probably one of the longest nights of my life. And then morning arrived, and the doctors came, and they told me that I was being taken to a psychiatric hospital. So they basically escorted me to the ambulance. They strapped me down to a stretcher, and we drove away. And after 15-20 minutes, we arrived at the psychiatric hospital in Norfolk. And I can't really remember the first couple of days there, but I know that it was really hard. But anyway, they took me to my room. My room was quite large. It had high ceilings, and it consisted of a single bed, a desk, a bathroom, ensuite bathroom, and that's basically it. We had to use these key cards to gain access to our room, and we had to use these key cards to gain access across the building. And so my room was in the men's quarters, and the men's quarters was just this long corridor with an L shape, and it just consisted of, I don't know, maybe 20 rooms. About half of them were full. And we had like this little community room where there was a sofa, a little TV, and an ensuite kitchen, and connected to that was kind of like a large patio area that I spent some time in when I was there. And so you walk out of the men's quarters, and basically on the right was like this hexagonal control room with like CCTV feeds of the entire building, and that's basically where the nurses would stay all day. And the windows were made out of steel mesh, so that if anyone tried to break them, they couldn't actually break through. And directly in front was the women's quarters, and to the left was like this long, narrow corridor. Toward the end was the exit that you could only get through via key card. And on the right was like this lounge area with two large sofas, a big TV, some tables, and a bookcase. And connected to that was like a dining area, and where they basically serve food for the patients. I ate quite well in there. I was eating 3 meals a day, and not gonna lie, the food was actually really good. So yeah, that's one thing. That's one positive to come out of this. Um, yeah, so that's basically the general layout of the building. We also had like a small gym. Towards my final days there, I started going occasionally, but I wasn't well enough to exercise at the time. But I'll explain a little bit more about that later. So yeah, the doctors ran their tests and they took my blood samples. At the time, I was severely malnourished because of the stress and everything that I was under. I couldn't eat and I didn't have an appetite. So physically and mentally, I was at the lowest of my low. I couldn't have sunk any lower than I was. And the doctors basically just told me to settle in and relax and just do the best that I could. And at the time, I didn't know how long I was going to stay there for. So that's what I did. I introduced and got to know some of the other patients. And to be completely honest, they were some of the most sanest, some of the most friendliest people I've ever met. And, I wondered why they're even there in the first place because, to me, they seem like normal people. And there was only one patient that I was quite concerned about. And his age was indeterminable. He may have been 40, but he looked like he was in his 60s or 70s. But yeah, you couldn't strike up a conversation with this guy because he was just in a reality of his own. And he just mumbled to himself incoherently in a thick Norfolk accent. But we had this moment that I'll explain later that kind of drew us together. It's quite bizarre and funny. Basically, what I'll do now is I'll talk about some of the delusions that I'm having. I just want to make it clear that what I was experiencing then was a result of, I believe, drug-induced psychosis. And I don't suffer from any of this anymore. And, I no longer think these things are real. And I can look back and just smile upon them because at the time they were as real to me as the air that I'm breathing now, and nothing could shake that off. And so I just thought that all the delusions that I was experiencing were reality. So I'll explain that in a second. Okay, so one of the delusions I was having was whilst I was in there, these are newly developed delusions. So these delusions spawned when I was in there, and one of them was basically this android-like cyborg entity was basically tampering into the TVs and phones and everything, but particularly the TVs. And it's really odd because I'd hear like the sound from the TV. I'd hear the sound from the TV coming from the common room, and there was like an undertone, or like in the background there'd be like a mechanical chatter, like an android's voice speaking through the TV. And at the time I was really scared because I'd hear the voice, and basically the voice would try and convince me to talk out aloud. And once I talked out aloud, it would recognize me, and then it would start talking to me. And it would laugh in this maniacal voice. And it just got me really scared at the time. So like I connected to that was another delusion that I had, where I thought that the other patients, including I, were part of this resistance to lead like an attack against, I don't know, some kind of corporate entity or whatever it was. And that we were put in there for the sole reason that we were meant to get together and create a plan and uncover a conspiracy. And yeah, I was just convinced that we were part of something larger, really. So that's another one that we had. And so I was suffering from all these like kinds of delusions and everything. I still have a few more, but they're so bizarre, and so I look back at them now and they're so stupid that I don't even want to mention them. But a lot of them concern some of the books that I read in the past, and basically some of the books that I read, they became my reality, and it was just really scary, because I just thought that basically other forces were trying to get me. So yeah, those were some of the delusions that I had. So now I'll talk about like some of the other experiences. So like I'll talk about some positive ones. There aren't many, but there's one where we had this music group, and we'd have like activities to do every day. So we'd have a look at the calendar, and we would see what's going on, and then we'd go find the room at a certain time, and we'd join in. And one of the activities was music club, and so yeah, I went to music club for the first time, and basically it's where patients and a nurse or two would go into a room and would pick our favourite song or a song that would represent our feelings at the time and play it to the entire group. And my first time there, I played. You have to appreciate. You'd have to know the song to appreciate it. But I played "Seize the Day" by Avenged Sevenfold. And if you don't know what the song's about, it's about someone being incarcerated. And I was really emotional at the time. I felt like, I felt really emotional. And yeah, so that was a moment that I had. And I mean, I feel that most of the time that I spent the majority of the time there reading. That's practically all I ever did. I just kept myself in my room and just read and read and read. And one of the books that I took in with me is this huge ledger of this book that with gold lettering and bound in leather, and it's called the Necronomicon, The Best Weird Tales by H.P. Lovecraft. And it's basically about horror / science fiction / fantasy, and it's a big book, and it took me the better part of 2 weeks to read it all, even though I was reading it every day. And so yeah, that kept me occupied. I had other books that I read, and I'm really thankful that I had them, otherwise I would have just gone crazy without my books. So I'm just really thankful I had them. And one day I didn't have anything to do, so I had a couple of pencils with me, and I asked the staff member if they could give me some paper. And then, I started copying some pictures out of the books. And the results were just, I was just flabbergasted with the results. I draw occasionally in the past, but I never really taken it up. And so I was drawing, and then I discovered that I really enjoyed it, and that I wasn't actually that bad. And some of the pictures, I have on my wall to this day. And I actually discovered that I had a talent for it. I actually had a knack for it, and that perhaps I'd like to pursue that in the future. And one other thing that I really enjoyed in there was we had this activity where we'd make things out of clay. And that was incredibly fun. We only did that a couple of times, but the first time I made this, it was like this cyborg. It's like the head of like a cyborg, and it had like these deep set eyes, and it had like this mouth with like this cleft lip, and it had like this really sharp teeth, and I painted it silver and stuff. I was really pleased with that. The other one that I bought was like the other one that I made was it was like this stone with like a pentagram painted on it. They're really cool. And one thing that I really had to do is go back to Northgate and just get them back. That is basically what I did there. And the other patrons just spent the majority of the time in the common room just watching TV, and I'd watch TV with them occasionally, very occasionally, but I didn't do it that often, so I didn't really get to know the other patrons as well as I should have. There's this one night where like Star Wars was playing, and like everyone was like convinced me that like calling out and said like, Luke, come on out, the Star Wars on and stuff. So like I like joined in with them, and we were watching Star Wars, and like at one moment I cried. I don't know what moment I cried in, but I cried at one moment because I was just an emotional wreck. And like the other guy that I was worried about, the guy that was in his own reality, the other patient, I'd sit next to him, and like when we were watching Star Wars, he was just calm and placid and stuff. And someone had bought him like a vaporizer, and it was just funny like watching him vape and stuff, and like chillax and everything. And like the one bit in Star Wars where Yoda is like training Luke and stuff in the swamp, everyone was just like going to hysterics because like everyone's saying like, oh Luke, you're Luke, obviously. Everyone's saying that the other patient, the one who I was worried about, the 40-year-old who looked like a 60 or 70-year-old, everyone was saying that he looks like Yoda, and like he was getting quite tearful because of that. And I was just like, oh, but like, that was just hilariously funny at the time. There are a couple of good moments. Those are some of the good moments I had. I also had some really bad experiences in there. So minus the delusions, basically I didn't get to speak to anybody what I was feeling at the time. I kept it all to myself. And there was a psychiatrist who came to the hospital once, maybe once or twice a week, or once every 2 weeks. And I sat down with him, I think maybe twice in the 5 weeks that I was there. And the meetings that we had, I'd never felt so down or so humiliated by someone in my entire life. Because I talked to him, like, I'd try and talk to him, but he'd smirk and he'd mock me, and like he'd ask me why I got the tattoos that I did, and like he kept on referring to like the Bible over and over again, and like even just thinking about him now just gets me angry because I just wonder how someone like that is in a position of power, but that's just the way that the world is. So yeah, I didn't get to speak to anybody about what I was feeling or what I was experiencing, so that was really difficult. It was kind of as if they'd already determined what I was or what I was suffering from, and that I'd had to deal with it. But that's just ridiculous because I didn't speak to anybody. I spoke to virtually nobody about what I was going through. So how could they know? How could they diagnose me without even speaking to me in the first place? So yeah, the treatment there. So in that regard, that was just horrendous, and I think they should really do something about that. The first 3 weeks in there were, I'm not gonna lie, they were quite good. I mean, I was recovering well, I was doing good in my reading, my writing, my drawing. And I also forgot to mention that after I read all the books I had, I felt really inspired to write a short story. And so whilst I was in there, it took me a couple of days, but I wrote this story called OB, or Other Brotherhood. And it took me. I had to edit it and proofread it and that kind of thing. And at the time, I was convinced that all the staff knew I was writing a story, and that the only way that I could get out is to write the story, so that once I've written the story, they could let me go. So I was convinced that I really had to do that. So anyway, I wrote it out in neat, and I gave it to one of the nurses. And because he said he used to be an English teacher, I just gave it to him, and he gave me some feedback. He said the description and the story and everything like that went really, really well. It was about 16 pages, but he said that the ending could have been edited because it ended abruptly. So that's one thing I'm looking to do in the near future, and just to develop that. So one thing I regret is not sharing the story out to other patients. So I would have liked to hear their feedback. One more thing, one more bad experience that I really have to point out is my last 2 weeks were a living hell, an absolute living hell, because I was counting down every minute of every hour and time just went so slowly for the last 2 weeks. And there are two reasons. The first one being is that I got a TV. So I asked my pa if he could bring in the TV for me, and he did. And it had this like built-in Freeview box. And so I got a TV and I started watching it, and then like all of my acumen and my motivation and inspiration just disappeared overnight, and I just turned into this lazy, complacent couch potato. So I wish I hadn't got the TV in there in the first place, because that really altered my mindset, and that it just made me decline even further. And this one I really have to emphasize, because it really had a detrimental impact on my mental and physical faculties. And that was basically when I was in there, I was being medicated with an antipsychotic called risperidone, and it was a very light medication. It didn't have that many adverse side effects. So I was taking that nightly, as well as another sleeping medication called promethazine. So I was taking them for the better part of 3 weeks. And then the final 2 weeks, the doctors said that I had to take an injection. So I was just terrified. I didn't know what was in it. I didn't know why they were giving it to me. I didn't know anything about it. They just gave us this information sheet with like just the basics of it. And I found out that some of the other patients were having the same injection. And we were all just really scared and worried, because we didn't know what they were going to put in us. And so to begin with, I outright refused them. I refused to have the injection, and I was adamant, and they didn't know what to do at first. And then the nurses told me that if I didn't take it, that they could keep me in there longer for a total of 5 more extra weeks. So I was just like, no way that's going to happen. So in the end, I gave in, and I sat myself in the medicine room one day, and they were giving me the injection, and something miraculous happened. They were just about to give me the injection, and just as they did it, the needle snapped, and the serum basically leaks all over the bed. And they said, oh no, we can't inject you anymore, because we have to order it from someplace else. So I just felt like some kind of like divine intervention occurred, or something that was beyond my understanding. So that was a miracle that happened. But then a couple of days later, my luck ran out, and they actually injected me with the serum. Basically, what they injected me with is a slow-release and antipsychotic called paliperidone, and I had about 100 milligrams of that. And I didn't notice anything to begin with, but over the next couple of days, my body started to experience these really weird sensations. I feel like this stiffness in my muscles. I felt, particularly in my legs, I felt a stiffness in my legs, and I felt constantly restless and irritable, like I was like suffering from withdrawals from something. And basically, so that really made me decline even further. But then I was ending toward I was going toward the end of my stay, and the day was getting closer where I was going to get released, and those days were just agonizing. I can't explain to you like the boredom that I was experiencing and the irritability that I was having. And then finally, my pa, he arrived, we packed my things, we had to wait around for about an hour or two whilst I did all the paperwork. And then, we said goodbye to the hospital, and I haven't gone back since. That was basically my experience at the psychiatric hospital. I'm sure there's a lot of that I missed out, but perhaps I can put that in another video. Overall, my time there wasn't too bad, but it could have been better. As of this day, they asked me to take the injection every month that I was out, so they want me to take the injection every single month. So I did that to begin with, and I was living in my student accommodation, but I was just feeling, I felt even worse than I felt as I was going in. So even though the delusions had stopped, I was just experiencing these really bad sensations in my body and mind and spirit, and that my last couple of days at university was just like a misery, all because of the medication and everything like that. So in July of this year, I made the decision to stop with the medication, and to this day, the doctors are still trying to convince me to take it, but I'm just remaining adamant and saying no, and they still won't. I personally believe that I was misdiagnosed, but I'll explain that in another video. But today I'm doing well. I'm still reading. I don't write that often, but I will when I can. But yeah, I try to do one productive thing per day. I'm doing well. I'm doing well right now. So if you've made it this far, then thank you for watching. I can't express the gratitude I have for you watching this really long and drawn out video. And if you have any questions or anything like that, don't be afraid to ask. Thank you for watching, and watch this space.